Hello and welcome everyone. Today we are here to talk about the energy of the full moon in Aries. And this full moon is very important. Why? Because it happens right before the solar eclipse in Scorpio, which happens on the 25th of October. But it's felt throughout the whole month because eclipses are events that their influence stretch weeks before and weeks after the exact date when they happen. So this full moon uh, precedes the eclipse, and it's right in the middle of the eclipse season. And this eclipse intensity started um, really to be felt intensely during the last week of September, and it will last until the end of this year. So this full moon in Aries will reveal to us much about what we have to deal with when it comes to our personal journey, our personal desires, our identity. And it's a lot about our identity wound. But let me tell you first what full moon in general is. Full moon is when the moon is the brightest uh, object in the sky that we can see. This is the time when the moon and the sun are right opposite to each other. They are looking at each other. So they have this connection of you and me. And the moon is in Aries and the sun is in Libra. So this is a lot about our relationships, our relationship with ourselves and our relationships with others. And we just experienced new moon in Libra 2 weeks ago. And now we have full moon in Aries with the sun in Libra. And Venus is also in Libra, in her own sign. So this full moon in Aries is in conjunction with Chiron, and Chiron is wounded healer, the archetype of the wounded healer in Aries next to this full moon. So something is being illuminated about our identity wound, and we are looking across the street. We are looking and projecting it on others as well, because we have Venus and the Sun in Libra in its opposite sign, and Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, while Libra is the seventh sign of the zodiac. So 1 and 7, and they together on the zodiacal wheel, they create a horizontal line. So the Aries is the sunrise. This is when the east moment of the east, when the sun awakens, and Libra is the descendant, the sunset. So the sunrise and the sunset. So it encompasses all of it, the whole journey, uh, just the other way around the wheel. We can go from Aries to Libra or from Libra to Aries, and we just experienced the circle of from Aries to Libra, which is more subjective reality, but we are moving towards more objective. So it's also about our healing journey, very much about healing journey. So the Aries part in us says I am, and the Libra part in us says we are or you are. So Aries is I and Libra is you. This is you and I dynamic as well, as we saw in the last lunar cycle, new moon in Libra. It was introduction to this dynamic of relationships, of our mirrors. And mirrors may break, mirrors may crack, but they are all those breaks and cracks are actually our guides for us to meet ourselves. This is the whole journey is about this. So Aries is affirmation of I am and I do, I move forward. And Libra is we are, you are, I balance, I harmonize, I relate. So we will need to balance between these two energies. And it's a lot about our personal journey, because Aries is that independent moment, the moment of us knowing who we are. And we may ask ourselves, who am I? This question awakens some truly deep echoing moments that can echo through our bodies and our souls. And we are learning now about who we are through our wounds, because our wounds actually discover to us who we are. Our wounds are our our guides. The Chiron is the wounded healer, and this is about our primal wound of birth of being born, there is a birth trauma being very much present, and our very moment of being born is already a trauma and wound. And this is simple to understand, because the moment of birth is actually the moment of separation from the source, separation from our mother's womb, separation from what's comfortable, cozy, where we don't have to do anything. We just depend on the source that is feeding us, nurturing us, taking care of us. And once we're born, we're on our own. That's what George Carlin once said, but it's very appropriate for this moment. You know, once you're born, you're on your own. So this is the birth trauma, and we are dealing with those traumas now. And we know that when baby is born into this world, the first connection and interaction with the world is crying. So there is immediate moment of healing that starts. This is the healing journey. So we can see through this immediately the healing journey begins. So our birth here and our life here in this time and space, in this reality, is about our healing journey. And it's all about that. All our conflicts, all our pains and sufferings, all our joys and pleasures, all our successes, achievements, all our failures, everything that we experience is a part of our healing journey. And to heal is not just to wake up being liberated from our wounds. That's not the idea of being healed, as we know through the story of the Chiron. And the point is to use these wounds, to use those traumas, to use them as a powerful resource, as gateways to our souls, to our freedom, to our independence. And this is, our identity wound. We have to acknowledge it, we have to see it. So it's not just about a quick moment of healing, like that's it, now I'm healed, I carry no more pain with me. That's not the point. The point is to acknowledge this pain, to recognize it, to accept it, to integrate it, to make it an integral part of ourselves. And we may witness these wounds these days because this eclipse is also pushing us very, very intensely towards those wounds and pains and traumas. It's pushing us because what we have been suppressing needs to be expressed now. And it's about to be expressed in a big way. And we have to go through it. We have to feel it. And the story of the Chiron is actually telling us this story about ourselves as well during this time. The Chiron archetype represents the healing that must take place in order to reconcile duality and polarities. And we see these polarities now in this Aries, Libra, me and you. Again, Aries, Libra, sunrise and sunset, Alpha and Omega. And we even see this Alpha and Omega in the glyph of Aries, the letter A, Aries, the first. And then Omega, we see the glyph of Libra is very similar to letter Omega. So this is also interesting because it represents, the beginning and the ending. And then it just repeats the circle, Alpha, Omega, then Alpha. So we are moving into this wheel. We are being taken for a ride on this wheel. And we often forget that there is a center of the wheel. We only see from the periphery of the wheel. We move on the edges of the wheel, but we are never in the center. So our task is to jump out of these edges of the wheel and to jump right into the center and to have a view of everything, what's going on around us, and not just having the view of what's going on from our subjective point of view. So the story of Chiron. And what's interesting about Chiron is that Chiron stays in Aries the longest than in any other sign. And for example, what's more interesting is that it stays in Libra for a very short period of time, only 1.5 years. And in Aries, it spends 8 years. So it's very interesting because we need to heal this wound of identity and our wound of being rejected and our wound of being separated at birth. So we are learning to come back to who we are, and we have to go deep into this healing. And it is strong because this primal wound is connected to this myth of Chiron. And Chiron, we know, is a centaur who is half human and half horse. So the upper part of the body of Chiron is human, and the lower part is animal part, the horse. So the mother of Chiron rejected him at birth because she was terrified by his look, by how he looked. So she rejected him, and he was, of course, in pain. And that was again a trauma of being rejected for who he is. So you see, we are now going through the process of acknowledging this wound and pain and trauma for being rejected for who we truly are. And then we ended up losing ourselves into roles, into different roles of playing and pretending and being fake in order to be accepted. But that's not how it works, because we do have to accept who we are, even though we may be rejected from the ones who gave us this birth. And or whoever, you know. So the primal wound of rejection is now coming to light. It's brought to light, and we have an opportunity to recognize this wound. And we may recognize it either through triggers from others. Somebody may trigger us emotionally, and we may feel very reactive. You know, this full moon in Aries, Aries is very reactive and impulsive. And we may have these overreactions, impulsive, emotional overreactions. And we can recognize our infantile nature as well. We are pretty much infantile in many areas of our lives, but we don't really want to admit that because we think that we are grown up, but we are not. We really are still at the level of that rejected child. Not only us, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our parents, our ancestors, they are all on that level. I'm not saying literally all of them. Some of them managed to wake up from that and to heal, to go through the healing process and to use their wounds as powerful resource. But majority of them are in that wound, and we carry this wound for many lifetimes. And this is our ancestral karma as well. And we will have to deal with a lot of ancestral material and karma during this eclipse season. And this is, you know, we are rejected for being ourselves, and we will be pushed against the wall in order to understand that it's not to blame whoever rejected us, it's not to blame those people, and it's not to blame us as well. Nobody is to blame. We have to accept that it was a part of a healing journey as well. Because, for example, in the story of Chiron, Chiron is then adopted by Apollo, the Greek sun god, and from whom he learned everything. He learned so many profound things, the art of healing and the art of self-acceptance. So Chiron's dual nature made it possible for him to become the greatest healer and the greatest teacher. So Chiron shows us that our deepest wounds are the source of our greatest wisdom and our greatest gifts. So he became gifted, and he received his gifts thanks to his wounds. And it's important to remember that Chiron was wounded at birth immediately, and the childhood wounds actually are deeply imprinted in our subconscious. We are unaware of them. So we receive this blueprint right away at our childbirth, and we are digging to identify our wounds. And when we identify them, we can connect with our gifts and our traumas that we experienced in the past, and they really connect us with the true of who we are. And it's important also to understand that Chiron, if Chiron wasn't rejected at birth by his mother, he would never be adopted by the god of the sun god Apollo, and he would never become the greatest healer and the greatest teacher. So this is a very important moment to understand that this is actually something amazing that we go through, and we still survive, and we have to give some credit to ourselves for this. we have to congratulate ourselves from time to time, instead of always, being in a grief, or being depressed, or being sad, or feeling alone, or feeling rejected, feeling abandoned, feeling misunderstood, or and so on and so on. We are so much attached to these things. We are attached to these labels so much, and we have to understand that we are actually victims of our own conflicted mind. We are victims of our own conflicted mind, and fear and anger that consume our emotional body, because these things, we can really win our self-victimization battle. And this happens once we are ready to stand in our own truth, and not to pretend, not to be fake, not to, do things in order to be accepted by others, because this is really the gold of being who we are, regardless of everything, regardless of really everything. We are here to understand that we need this courage of Aries archetype in us. We need Aries courage and bravery, and we need Libra's compassion to dare to consistently pursue the goal of being who we are. And we are definitely on this journey right now. We are transforming our wounds into our powers and our authentic selves. So this transformation happens actually through self-care and self-love, and no one can do this instead of us. Nobody can love me instead of me. I have to love myself. I cannot demand that somebody else loves me instead of me. And we actually came here in order to understand ourselves, not to be understood by others. And we insist all the time to be understood by others. We insist over and over again to be understood by others. And this is how we end up suffering many times, because it's impossible to be fully understood by others. We barely manage to be understood by ourselves. But our greatest task is to really understand ourselves, to have understanding for ourselves, and not to get lost in trying to be understood by others. And this is not a journey that has a finish line. This life is really about these healing moments that happen many times over and over again. Every moment we go through the healing process, and each time we feel hurt or rejected or abandoned is again a very powerful moment for healing. These are our passages for healing. These moments of traumas, our trauma is our entrance to healing, actually. And this is why we are here. And this transformation is something that is necessary. It is unavoidable. We cannot escape it. And even though we may try to escape it, but we cannot. And the healing journey never stops. It's not like I'm going to reach the point of where I'm no longer influenced or triggered by any of the things that trigger me usually. Because once we achieve the moment of clarity, understanding, acceptance, when we go through the art of healing and self acceptance, when we reach the moment of becoming the greatest teacher and healer, then we have another task. We have to support others to go through the healing process. It's not like I did my job, I'm out of here. It's not like, okay, I'm liberated from my wounds and I'm out of here. That's not the idea of this life. The idea is to really collect as many experiences as we can, and to crystallize them, to make them worthy, to make them precious, to make them valuable, to understand that each moment is precious and irrevocable, and that we have to embody everything, because this whole life is experience from the worst to the best. But worst and best are just terms that we created. There is no such thing actually from the higher perspective, but we think there is something, good or something bad, but it's all there to teach us something. Everything is teacher, and our greatest teachers are actually our wounds and traumas, and those moments when we feel left alone, rejected, and abandoned. These are the moments when we have the most powerful uh, guidance, actually. But what do then? We shut down. We shut down and we withdraw and we decide to just numb ourselves. But this is again, life never leaves us alone. Life never leaves us alone. So we are always being challenged and tested. We are always being challenged by something new. We are always challenged to change our perception, to do something new, to then again enter the trauma, to again be in the middle of the storm, and then to learn how to balance, how to stand right, how to be centered in the middle of this chaotic storm. We are always being challenged, and even though we may fall many times, it doesn't matter, because there will come one time when we will master it. So we are always learning to master ourselves. This is the journey of self mastery and self healing. We are learning to master ourselves, and once we reach the point of when we are, skilled, and when we feel that we are experienced, and that these experiences have crystallized in us, then we have a task to help others do the same. This is what Chiron was doing. He was first wounded and rejected, then he was taken for a journey of learning to accept these wounds, to go through the healing process, and then he became the healer himself and the greatest teacher. So this is the we are dealing with this primary wound within ourselves, and there is no other way but right through it. Right. There is also another quote by Rumi. He says, "The cure for the pain is in the pain." And that's very simple. The cure for the pain is in the pain. And there is another quote from Manly P. Hall, and he says um, that, or actually it was Rudolf Steiner. I don't know. I'm not so sure, but it doesn't matter who it is. But the quote says, uh, "Wisdom is crystallized pain." And we see through many of these masters and ancient scriptures and spiritual teachings that are left to us as a legacy, that we are always being told that pain is actually a hidden treasure. Hidden treasure is hidden in those painful moments, in those great moments of our suffering, because this is when we start having faith. This is when we start talking with our higher selves. This is when we, become more humble. And this is when we, some of us, get down on our knees and pray. This is when we decide that, okay, there is something more powerful than me, and I'm going to surrender and to trust. And this is what needs to happen. But we first have to have this strong personality, strong identity. This is Aries, and Aries and Chiron speaks about this in Aries. Chiron in Aries and Full Moon in Aries, they speak about this, the knowledge of who we are, the authentic selves. And for this, we definitely need to have strong and healthy ego. It's not, the point is not to, dissolve our bodies and to disappear. Our goal is not for ourselves to disappear. Our goal is for ourselves to be actualized, to be energized, to be acknowledged, to be lived to its fullest, and in our current human form, and not to dissolve, because we will anyway leave this body sooner or later, all of us, and this opportunity for self-realization will be gone in that moment. And we cannot self-realize ourselves in another form but in this form. This is why we came into this life, in order to realize who we are, so that our human nature needs to be developed. It needs to be not it doesn't need to be transcended into some impersonal shape or form. I mean, in something that is shapeless and formless. But the point is that our individuality needs to be affirmed. It needs to be appreciated and loved. We have to recognize our authenticity. We have to recognize, because we are all unique. There is no two of us identical. uh, not even twins. We are all separate. There are different degrees of who we are, and we all have very unique uh, nature, very unique expression, very unique energy, very unique aura, very unique blueprint of who we are. Just like our fingerprints, each fingerprint is different. So this is what we need to understand as well, that there is no two identical of us. We are all unique beings, and we have to awaken this authenticity. We have to awaken this uniqueness of who we are, and we can express ourselves through this fire element of Aries. This is why our desires are very important, because our desire is what draws us towards achieving something. Our desire is what makes us do things. So we need desire, and it's our primal force. It's what draws us forward to do something, to initiate something. This is why Aries is about initiating, and Aries is the archetype of war, while Libra is archetype of peace. And Aries, and the ruler of Aries is Mars. Mars is god of war. Mars is fighter and warrior, while Venus, ruler of Libra, they are opposing signs. That's why I'm talking about them. They are important very much. And Venus, Libra, they are the lover archetype. So the lover and the fighter, war and peace, me versus you. So these polarities are not something outside of us. Never. They are a whole integral part of who we are. But at some point, these things need to separate from us, so that we can learn, we can have direct experience. Then that's why the birth of child is also needed to happen as a moment of separation from the source, because then we have an ability to build ourselves, to be a true artists of life, because we are artists. And this is why we say the art of healing, because when we realize that we are artists, we are co-creators. Each and every one of us has their unique place and function. And this is the moment of Aries that teaches us that I am. And we should ask ourselves also, who is the one who realizes and who says I am? Who is the one behind those words of I am? Who is the one who is aware of the affirmation I am? And these kinds of questions takes us a bit deeper. These kinds of questions have power to push us into this center of the wheel. These kinds of questions can sweep the ground under our feet, and we may feel like we are losing it all. We may feel lost, but this is actually the process of getting to the core of who we are, reaching the core essence of who we are, right when we feel lost. When we feel lost may be the best moment of our lives, because this is when we don't feel like we belong anywhere, and this is when we can experience a true freedom. Real freedom we can experience once we are aware that some things we cannot control. There are many things that we cannot control, actually, many of them. And these kinds of things now are pushing us against the wall, and then when we reach this wall, we have nowhere else to go but to fall down into this center. And this is the abyss, actually, the abyss of our own being. And we are going to be pushed towards this abyss as we progress during this month into towards the eclipse in Scorpio, because this is our deepest, darkest, the most unknown, the scariest place of who we are. But there's nothing to be scared of. Actually, once we are there, we see that there was nothing to be scared of, actually, in the first place. But we have to go through the moment, through the process of that agony, that antagonizing moment of waiting for something. Like we are waiting for this to happen, and then we are in fear because it's totally unfamiliar and unknown. but once we are there, it's not unknown anymore. Once we are there, it's already there. So there's nothing else to do but to be there and to comprehend, to feel, just to feel, not to analyze or judge or criticize, just to feel, because we are then in our core essence being, and we really may be pushed towards this abyss now strongly. So our task is not to run away from this, but to witness this abyss and to ask ourselves this question: who is that voice that knows, that witnesses, that says the affirmation of I am? Who sees that? Who is that? Where is the presence of that voice? Who is that voice? So this full moon in Aries has a lot of power of recognizing who we are, of recognizing that voice, that authentic voice, and being able to really accept the healing, accept the wounds, accept that the cure for the pain is in the pain, and not through escaping this pain and through feeling some pleasure, temporary pleasure, or temporary comfort. This won't ever give us any solution. And there are no quick solutions, and we are now ready to understand this, that we actually have to, as this quote I said also, wisdom is crystallized pain. So the process of crystallization needs to happen, and crystallization is process that happens over time. This is something that takes time. This is why things that take time have much more value and quality, because they last longer. This is the archetype of Saturn, and we are now in the middle again of the Saturn and Uranus square. The highest peak is happening now. So we are now really able to realize our own values, our long-term values, and to understand that we are learning and healing also through the mirrors of others. We are learning and healing through these mirrors all the time, and everything is our mirror. And we are actually this, all the anger, all the rage, all the tears, all the sadness are uh, very potent and fertile ground for growth and resurrection. So because we are going to reach the Scorpio eclipse in 2 weeks. I'm talking about this now because it's very active and it's very connected to this full moon in Aries. So first, we have to really acknowledge and understand that I am, to really feel that echoing moment, to feel it in our hearts, to feel the beat of this affirmation I am, um, not just through our voices and through literal pronunciation of I am, but to hear it in our deepest core being, to feel every cell of our body, to feel I am. To, my hair needs to feel that I am. It has to echo all around me. Everything around me needs to be in the state of I am before I enter this abyss and be ready to go through the resurrection process. So we are burning up all the emotions. We are burning up all things. We are burning our karma. So this is the moment of, burn karma, burn. And, Aries is fire sign. Mars is fire planet. And the ancient ruler of Scorpio is also Mars. So we see the role of Mars is very important in this time. And Mars is about to station retrograde at the end of this month, but it's also felt now very strongly. Mars is in Gemini, and we may feel very, very, how do I say, very lost, and we may feel traffic jam, mental traffic jam, and very distracted by many things, because Mars is in Gemini, and Gemini is a versatile sign, very curious, likes to be everywhere, likes to know everything, be here and there and everywhere. And Mars likes to do things, to get things done, to move forward, to take action, to initiate something. So we may have very much troubles in order to realize, what do we really want? Where do I want to go? What do I want to finish? What do I want to start? And we may also struggle with others who maybe change their opinions a lot during this time. So we are asked to be more patient with others and with ourselves, have more patience, because this Mars retrograde uh, in Gemini can really make a mess of our mind, but it can also bring a lot of peace to our mind if we are willing to look within and not to search for quick solutions outside of ourselves for temporary pleasures and temporary comfort. So this is fire energy, upward and onward, and we are, have an opportunity to burn it all out, to burn out those old emotions, old ancestral patterns. But we are going through this process of burning, and we may feel like we are burning from the inside as well. And it's not something bad, it's good actually. If you are feeling if you feel that you are burning from the inside, welcome this burning. Just feel it. Don't try to cool it down. But of course, don't arm anyone around you with this burning. Don't let it exceed, don't let it go in some direction where you don't want it to go. But as long as you are aware of it, as long as you are able to observe it, as long as you are able not to identify with that burning but to see it and to accept it as a process, as a natural process, you are able to release a lot of that. You are able to release a lot of those old stuck emotions that are there from our ancestors, and from, who knows what and when, from which period of time, from the future, from our past, it doesn't matter. But we are now able to see these things, to witness them, and to stand in our own power, despite the fact that we are afraid, despite the fact that we maybe don't know who we are really. But we are going to trust the process. We are asked to trust, to have faith, to have really that faith in who we are despite everything. Just being able to know that I am, to really hear that affirmation of I am, and also to have awareness that we are as well. But first, we need to have that faith in ourselves. First, we need to say, I am, I trust myself, I believe myself, I have faith in myself. And then through this affirmation and this safety, this comfort of being able to trust ourselves, then we are able to see that we are as well, that we are all in this together. So we have ability to release these things in safe way, to release this anger and rage and everything, to release it in a safe way. And we may see some hidden anger as well. We may see some things that we didn't know are there in ourselves. Some things may come out that we didn't know are there because they are triggered. We may be frustrated and irritated. This Mars retrograde can take us into some totally different directions, uh, because we may, for example, we may think that we are going somewhere. We may think that we are headed somewhere, but the path will lead us in a totally different direction. We may end up in a totally different place, but this is how it's supposed to be. So let's not struggle with this. Let's not try to, make a different direction. Let's not try. Let's just accept that flow. Let's accept it now, and let's see where it takes us, because it's very important to have this recognition of destructive anger and to transform it, because it's not toxic to be angry. It's toxic when we suppress anger. It's not toxic to feel rage. It's toxic to suppress it and to project it onto others. But it's very healthy when we are able to fully feel this anger, to let it out in some powerful way, in some healthy, find healthy outlets. That's why these things are powerful. We see many artists throughout the history and lifetime that made powerful things, that made true gems, that made some perfect pieces of art, masterpieces, thanks to their anger, thanks to their traumas, thanks to their wounds, thanks to their hurts and abandonments and rejections. This is exactly what helped them reach that moment when they entered the abyss. They reached the moment of their inner space where there is so much richness, so much fertile ground for growth, for creation. This is when we become creative. This is when we become co-creators and artists. when we accept the art of healing, when we accept that we are wounded, when we accept that we may be rejected from our loved ones, but this also happens as a necessary part of a healing journey. And we may also see during this time um, gender wars, a lot of gender wars, because this is our identity. Gender defines us in a very powerful way. Gender defines many of our roles. Gender defines our purpose. Gender defines our relationships. Gender defines so much. This is my identity, right? So identity wounds and gender wounds and the war of gender. We don't know who we are, for example. And then we get lost in these different modalities. And these gender wars are very much present now, and they will be present for some time more. But we are going, because this is also necessary for collective healing. We are collectively healing our we are healing the moment where we forgot who we are. So we have to go through this process of war, gender, and not knowing who we are, getting lost, thinking that we are somebody who we are not, or accepting that we are something that we are not, just in order to be accepted in a greater, to be a part of community, to be a part of some movement, and then we lose ourselves again. But that's also just a part of a healing journey. So in any case, it's all good. In any case, let's not forget this. In any case, there is no space for panic, or for feeling lost and for feeling separated from the rest of the world, because there are so many individuals in the world who feel separated from the whole world. And just by seeing this, that there are so many individuals who feel the same, that puts them in the same box, right? And we know from seeing this that they are never actually, again, they are never separate. We cannot be separate. I speak about this many times, but this is our necessary wound that we have to experience, because through this separateness we become aware of our own individuality. And this is we are actually we may find ourselves going in one direction, and we may then turn completely around and end up in a totally different direction. So these are now switching paths, like the train, like, you know, the train goes into one direction, then suddenly it turns and shifts its direction suddenly. So we may suddenly just find ourselves on a totally different path, and we shouldn't panic. We should accept it, really, because we are now going to witness what we are resisting and what we are rejecting as well. Like, are we rejecting something also in our life the way we were rejected? So there are those of us who will resist and reject, and there are those of us who will wake up and who will go through the process of awakening and start accepting. So this is why this art of healing and the art of self-accepting is very important, because as long as we resist and reject, we continue our wound of being rejected. We just prolong it. We make it longer and longer and longer, and we go deeper and deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. But it doesn't matter. Again, nothing. It's nothing to be afraid of, because again, life will put us in a situation, and life will challenge us again in order to put us out of that rabbit hole and to push us into the abyss of who we are, because this is where we have a power to understand this process, and to understand that each human is unique, that my personality is gift from the divine energy, from the source. My personality is gift, and it's exactly, I am given all these gifts exactly because I am who I am, and not because I am somebody else. So we see that Chiron, Centaur, he would never reach the level of being the greatest teacher and healer if he wasn't born as a Centaur, as half human, half horse, from whom his mother was terrified because he was born like that. So he would never reach that level of wisdom if it wasn't for his wound and trauma. So we are now asked, do we want to change or to be changed? There is not much choice. We are going to be we can either change ourselves, or we are going to be changed. Are we going to willingly change, or will we unwillingly be changed? Like, am I deciding for myself to change, or am I going to be forced to change by external situations? And again, it doesn't matter which way it will go, because either way we will go through the process of transformation. And we can either make our choice, or let it be made for us. Of course, it's always better to make our choice, because eventually we will come to this point through our life, where we will have to make that choice, where we will be again and again put in situations where choices will be made for us. We will be forced to change unwillingly, but then through these processes, through these crystallizations, we will understand that there will come a time when we have to make the choice. We are willingly choosing to change. We are willingly entering the abyss. We are not letting circumstances and situations push us into the abyss, but we ourselves decide to jump into the abyss. And this is the moment of clarity that comes, and we may actually feel this clarity because Mercury just stationed direct, and Pluto is also stationing, and Pluto and Mercury are in a beautiful trine aspect, so they are supporting each other. Mercury has a very important role in this under this full moon, and Mars as well has a good role in this full moon. So we have to use our action, our drive, our energy, our passion, and we have to also use our ability to express ourselves, our ability to talk, our ability to be the messengers, to share significant information, to open up about ourselves, to open up about our wounds, to open up about our traumas, not necessarily to others, but to ourselves, to be more intimate with ourselves. And we will have also help from Saturn, because there is a trine between Saturn and Mars, and there is also Venus and Saturn. So we have this support for something um, methodical, for something structured, for something where we can be disciplined. And we can really be disciplined in this healing journey. So the point is to reach the level of discipline through the healing journey, and we can drop into who we are. Just jump into that abyss and not be afraid of what we may face there, because we will face it one way or another. We are definitely going there, and we should definitely honor our traumas, our wounds, because, for example, I'm going to tell one story of three men. So three men who are carrying two bags with them, and one man is carrying. Actually, all three of them are carrying these two bags. One is in front, and one is on their back. So they are all walking with these two bags, but they are all walking differently. They are not walking in the same way. One is faster, one is slower, one is stopping, one is just walking. So what's the difference in their walks and in their bags? Uh, First man, he's carrying a bag in front of him, and in that bag he is carrying all his negative associations, all his negative experiences, all his wounds and traumas and pains and sufferings and rejections, and he is carrying good things and good memories and future hopes and dreams on his back. So he's continuously being prevented from moving forward, because he's all the time looking at these things in front of him. These negative things, these rejections and wounds, they are all the time jumping in front of him. So he is not able to move forward so quickly, because he's all the time stopping and having to put the bag down and then put it back on and then put it back down. So the other man is doing the opposite. He is carrying all the negative things on the back and all the good things in the front. So he's moving a bit faster than the first one, because He is not looking at these things directly, but he knows, he is aware of his negative stuff. He is aware of his wounds and traumas and pains, and he's carrying them on his back, but he's looking in the front of him, and he is being carried by the good things. And the third man, who is the fastest and who is just walking lightly, when compared to these two, he did something different. He's carrying also the good memories and the good wishes and dreams for the future in front of him. He is carrying the bag in front, which is, giving him a forward movement, giving him an inspiration, giving him motivation and courage to move forward. And in the back, he is also carrying these negative stuff, his pains and wounds and traumas and sadness and hurts. But he made a hole. He made a hole under the on the bottom of that bag. So all the bad things that are coming and that he is collecting along the way are just going through that bag and just dropping. Just they are just left behind. So he is not carrying them forever, but he has the awareness of them being there. He's processed them because they went through the bag, but they just dropped. So he is not carrying the whole baggage. He is not feeling the whole weight of it, but he's aware of that weight. He's aware that they are there. He's still carrying, but there is no weight that is pushing him down. So he's free to go, but with the awareness of those pains and wounds and traumas. And this is what we have to do, because we also have to process those things somewhere, and to transform them. So they are beautiful things that we can transform into our powers, into our wisdom. And we need that trash can, right, for those things. We cannot just not have any bag for it. We have to have some bag for those things, and we have to be aware that we are carrying them. So this is the moment of us to understand that these things are not to be thrown away, but they are also not to be put on the pedestal. They are also not to be carried and attached to for so long, because we have a tendency to be attached to those things. And then when we are attached to those things, we identify with those things, and this is not who we really are. So we identify with our wounds, we identify with our pain, we identify with our traumas. And because we identified with those things, we are not identified with who we truly are. And because of that primal wound of being rejected, even though if we don't consciously have that memory of being rejected, those things are unconsciously, on our subconscious level, somewhere imprinted, and they become present in our life through many different situations and events when we are triggered. And we are triggered by everything all the time, and we feel threatened many times. So we may feel these triggers strongly during this time. And we are asked to see where we are being too identified. What are we being too identified with? And also we are asked to see, are we adding material for healing to others? Are we the ones who support others on their healing journey, or are we the ones who add to their wounds and traumas? Do we add them more material to have for them to have to fight with, to process, or do we help them leave that, accept that, and make the whole? Do we tell them that they can actually make the whole on their bag and process it in that way? Do we actually do that, or do we actually add more stuff into their bag? So what do we do with others? How do we relate? How do we help others deal with their own healing journey? Are we able to understand that everyone has their own healing journey, and that everyone has their unique path? So we are now really going through this moment of understanding that we have our authentic selves, regardless of what we are identified with, regardless of our rejected traumas, of our traumas of being abandoned and misunderstood and left alone, and in any way, whenever we felt not taken care of, whenever we felt not heard, whenever we felt that we were somehow excluded from the story. These moments we strongly identify with them, and then we lose the connection with who we are. So again, let's try to wake up that strong, powerful moment in the formation of I am. Let's try to put ourselves in the state of I am. Let's make this affirmation echo through our physical body, through our mental body, through our emotional body, through all our bodies. Let this affirmation echo and spread uh, all around us in concentric circles. Let it grow exponentially, like I am, I am, I am, I am. And let's ask ourselves, who is that voice who confirms, who affirms I am? Let's not be afraid of abyss. Let's jump right into it. Let's give ourselves some credit for surviving the whole story, and uh, let's connect with that Chiron in us. Let's wake up that inner Chiron, because we all have Chiron somewhere in our chart. We are all healers, so we all have this inner Chiron. We are all potential teachers and healers and artists. So let's dive deep into the art of healing and art of self-acceptance, and let's see that we always are, that I am, and that we are regardless of everything, and that no matter what experience we go through, no matter how painful it may be, it's our healing journey. Let's not forget this. So I'm happy to be able to express this with you, because what I'm doing here is also healing. This is healing for me, and this is healing for those of you who listen. And this is not something that is separate from me. I am inside of this healing journey as well. This voice that is being expressed, and I am affirmation, is just a reminder for all of us. Let's remind ourselves of who we are. Let's remind ourselves that I am is always present. That affirmation I am is always present, and we will see where we are as this eclipse season is building up. So I'm very excited to share what I have with you in 2 weeks about the solar eclipse in Scorpio, and then the upcoming lunar eclipse in Taurus. It's very, very transformational. It's very life-changing. It's very deep, and it's facing us, leaving us one-on-one with that affirmation, I am. So happy to see you in 2 weeks to discuss this with you, and I hope you stay well and remember the affirmation of I am in next 2 weeks, please. Goodbye.